What up, everybody? Welcome back to Operation Moksha. As always, I'm your host, Chris Orozco, and today I'm going to be demystifying something that people talk about a lot, but I don't think people really have a working, practical definition of that really gives them anywhere to go. And that concept is validation. Everybody talks about validation a lot, right? They talk about like needing external validation, or like not needing external validation, or like learning to validate yourself, or like all these different things. However, how many times have you ever heard a working definition of what validation actually means and how to apply it in your life to give you what you're looking for from everyone else? I had never really heard one that made sense to me. So again, like I do for a lot of things, I had to make up my own definition. So this is what I've figured out. Because when you're doing parts work or anything like that, you have to first validate a part in order for it to feel okay with you. Right? You can't just like try to reprogram it without at least acknowledging it or being like, hey, I see you, I see why you're doing what you're doing, and like, let's work this out. And so validation is really just the process of acknowledging something. At least inside, this is how it works. At least acknowledging a part of your being and allowing it to exist exactly as it is. All validation is on a personal level when you're giving it to yourself is taking a look at a part of your personality that you don't like or you're trying to integrate or whatever it might be and simply saying, I see you. You're here. It's okay that you're here. You're allowed to be here. That's it. It's an acknowledgement and an acceptance of its presence, basically allowing it to be there. The thing that I kind of want to use to distinguish this from how a lot of other people look at validation is, well, first I'll explain how other people view validation. Most of the time people look at validation as like compliments, right? Like if you seek validation from outside sources, you're seeking outside people to tell you that you're good enough. You're seeking outside sources for people to tell you that you're okay and that you're a good person and that like you're lovable and valid and worthy and all kinds of whatever. But that's not really how validation works on the internal level. Because what happens when you're getting those validation and whatever from outside sources, you're getting compliments. Because I'm going to distinguish compliments from validation. Because what happens when you're getting compliments from outside yourself, what's happening is you have a negative belief about yourself. You think you're unlovable, you think you're unworthy, you think you're not good enough, you think you're whatever. And then either somebody decides that, they want to fuck you, or they decide that you're good enough or whatever. Instead of actually truly validating the part of you that feels bad and allowing it to exist, what happens instead is you just double down on this like, oh, that must mean I'm not bad. Instead of accepting the part of you that says that you're bad, you're saying, oh, this person likes me, this person wants to fuck me, and this person wants to give me money, therefore I must be good. All that's really doing is allowing you to continue to repress the part of you that says that you're bad because outside sources are telling you that you're good. That doesn't actually validate anything. All that does is give you an opportunity to push things away further. And on top of that, it keeps you dependent on the validation of others. Because when you're not getting validation from yourself, you have to get it from elsewhere. Because all the different parts of your personality, they want to be loved, they want to be accepted, they want to be integrated, they want to be expressed, they want to be heard, they want all these different things. But if you won't love them and they need love, then they have to get it from somewhere else. If you want to feel like a good person, but you can't talk to the part of you that says that you're bad, you have to get the idea that you're a good person from other people. So you're literally dependent on it. You're literally dependent on it. Because you don't know how to self-source it. And the interesting thing about this is like your parts or whatever don't really care where the love or validation comes from. They just want it. And the only reason they're trying to get it from outside sources is first of all because you told them that's where to get it. But on a deeper level, it's because they're not getting it from you. All they care about is that they're getting it. They don't care where it comes from. So if you give the love and validation to the parts of you that need it the most, it actually works better than trying to get it from everyone else. Because you're not dependent on anyone else. You have an unlimited source of love and validation inside you that you can give to each individual part however you need to, whenever it needs to. You have an unlimited supply, you have access to it at all times, and you can generate it at will, which means you don't really need the validation from other people. It's still good to have connections, it's still good to have good relationships and all that sort of stuff, but when you don't need the validation and acceptance from other people, it actually makes your relationships healthier. Because you can just say, like, I can validate myself, I don't need that from you. I can love myself, I don't need that from you. I can just be a whole person who can hang out with you just because I like you, just because I enjoy you. Because the thing about this is when you are dependent on other people because you're not getting the love from yourself, it can turn into some really shitty things because you can get the love and validation from places you really shouldn't be getting it. These are needs. You really do need the love and validation. And anybody who's been in a codependent dynamic can tell you that because you need it so bad, you'll be tempted to get it from places that you shouldn't get it. Either from toxic partners, people who aren't really good to you, whatever it might be. They validate you and compliment you and make you feel good about yourself and allow you to repress the bad side. So you're like, fuck, I got to keep this around, even if they're not good for me, even if they're not good to me. I still need this thing, so I'd rather get it from them, even though I'm treated poorly, rather than not getting it all.
Do you validate? No.
So when you start to give it to yourself, all those shitty places where you might get love and validation, they just don't appeal anymore because you're getting it from yourself. You no longer are desperate for it. So you can choose who you connect with freely, and you can just simply say, I like you, I want to spend time with you, you actually make me feel good. Like, I don't need anything from you, I'm already whole, I can just do what I need to do. And this also allows you to walk away from bad experiences and allows you to acknowledge bad experiences.
Do you want a blowjob or something?
I'm good, thanks.
Because when you can acknowledge yourself and when you can validate yourself and make yourself feel good, you start to notice everybody else that makes you feel less than that. Or anybody who brings energy into you that's like, wait a minute, I know what it is like to feel good and solid in myself. You're making me feel something other than that. I don't think I want to be around you. Or at least have the conversation about it and clear up all these things because you get this solid stability within yourself where you know what it feels like to be loved, you know what it feels like to be validated, you know what it feels like to be cared about, and then when anybody brings you anything other than that, it doesn't agree with your system. You're like, I just don't like being around this. At this point, I actually do want to define my version of validation. And it's funny because I was thinking about this the other day, and I was thinking about parking validation. When you get your parking validated, the validator doesn't say like, oh, you're a super good boy and everybody loves you and you perceive the world totally accurately and you're the perfect person and all that sort of shit.
Oh, he's a good boy. Yeah, he's a good boy.
That's not what the parking validator says. All getting your parking validated says, yes, this person was here at this time. All it is an acknowledgement of your existence. And that's what validation really is. So if you're chasing compliments and all sorts of things, you got to remember that all you're doing is trying to repress the bad parts and keep identifying with the good parts and keep like a fucking chokehold on them because you're like, oh, I need this. I better be attached to this fucking thing because if I'm not, then I'm going to be that and I can't be that. So I got to get all these things. And it keeps you wrapped around in this fucking cycle forever and ever and ever. And it's goddamn horrible. And I highly recommend you not living like that ever. So if you want to take the time, if you want to take all that power back and be able to validate yourself, all you really need to do is find the parts of you that need to be validated because this is a very important element of it. Like if you just say, yes, I exist and it's okay that I exist, like sure, that's fine. That's going to be great. However, there's going to be other parts of you that are going to be like, that's not fucking true, bro. We suck. I suck. Everything sucks. And you got to be able to take those parts because those are the ones that need the acknowledgement. Because this is the problem with looking at it as compliments. When you look at it as compliments, you'll say all these really good things to yourself and you'll be hyping yourself up and it'll be fucking amazing and wonderful. However, huge chunks of your personality won't believe what you're saying because you've told them not to believe it. So the place to go from there is like when you try to give it compliments, not only are they not going to hear it and accept it and take it in, they're going to push back. They're going to be like, no, I'm not that good thing. I'm this fucking terrible thing. Because the reason you believe the terrible thing is it's a defense mechanism. It's protecting you from something. So this part of you that's like, I have to believe I suck, otherwise bad things will happen, it's not going to give that up. So you just complimenting it, it's going to be like, nah, fuck you. Whereas if you can acknowledge it and just be like, hey, look, I see that you're here. You think that you suck. You think that you're unlovable. You think you're unworthy. I see that. And that's okay. You're allowed to exist. Because the thing about this is like, a lot of people think that when they accept a part of themselves, that means that they approve of it and that they like it and they agree with it and all these sorts of things, but it has absolutely nothing to do with validation. Just like the parking validation thing, when you're validating a part of yourself, you're not saying like, oh, you're such a sweet, wonderful baby and everything you do is right and you perceive the world accurately 100% of the time and you've never misperceived anything ever. Like that's not what you're saying. What you're saying is, I see you and you exist and you're allowed to exist and it's okay for you to be there. And so the other thing about this is that whether or not you accept it, it's still fucking there. You don't have to accept it. It's gonna be there regardless. Whether or not you validate it, whether or not you do anything with it, it's still fucking there. So the question is, am I going to act like this thing isn't there and desperately try to get other people to help me ignore that it's there and believe some other thing about myself and keep me fractured and codependent and in conflict with myself and going back and forth and all this bullshit for the rest of my life? Or would I rather just accept the fact that this thing is in me? It's a part of me, fully accept it, be at peace with it, and then do the work to understand why it's even there in the first place so I can start meeting its needs and integrating it. And you can't really do the integration work unless you know how to validate the thing. Unless you can say it's okay for you to exist exactly as you are, you're not going to get very far in your integration work. Because just like with the compliments, if you try to integrate a part of you that you haven't even fully accepted yet, it's going to be like, fuck you. You've pushed it into a deep, dark corner for its entire life. And then now all of a sudden you come back like, hey, like you should be the healthy thing. Like you should do better. You should make my life better because I've mistreated you my whole life and you should do things for me now. And I don't think anybody on this planet is going to warm up to an invitation like that, including the parts of your personality. So this validation process is absolutely essential because it's the first thing that says, okay, I've been ignoring you my whole life, but here you are. And it's okay for you to exist exactly as you are. And the interesting thing about that is as you start to embrace and accept that, it's going to freak out because it's never been accepted. It doesn't think it can be accepted. It doesn't think it should be accepted. So it's going to act up even more to try and get you to be freaked out and be like, oh, maybe I should banish you. But if you don't, if you stick with it, and if you keep saying it's okay for you to exist, I fucking love you, blah, 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 eventually something kind of breaks and you're able to hold it much more openly and loosely, and it trusts you and it doesn't fight against you anymore, and then it becomes open to suggestion, and then you can begin the integration process. But without this validation of being able to acknowledge and hold the part of yourself that you're trying to integrate and just allowing it to exist, like just put yourself in the position of somebody trying to get you to do some shit who doesn't even acknowledge your existence, who doesn't even accept the fact that you exist, can't even be okay with your very presence on the planet, and they suddenly want you to do shit for them. Like you really got to put yourself in this position and see how absurd it is. So when you're validating yourself, you're doing so much more than just saying it's okay for me to exist. Like you're taking your power back from other people, you're giving it all to yourself, you're priming whatever part you're dealing with in order to be integrated, and you're creating a more harmonious and just peaceful way of being. Because most people are in conflict with these parts they don't like. It'll say, I suck. And you go, oh, I'm terrified of that. Like, get the fuck out of here. And whereas it say, you suck. You're just like, oh, hey, bud. I see you doing that.
Sorry.
What's going on? Why are you doing that? And then it ends up being a conversation rather than this like white knuckle fucking conflict that you got to get yourself through. So, in summary, compliments are not validation. Compliments are things that you get so that you don't have to do the work of validating the parts of you that really need the validation. If you really want to do this, you have to figure out what you're getting from these other people. Like if you are the type of person that gets validation from outside sources, it's like, okay, what specific kind of validation do I need? It's like, do I need people to want to fuck me? Do I need people to want to give me money? Do I need people to tell me I'm amazing? Do I need people to tell me that I'm hot? Blah, 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 blah. What specific kind of validation do I think I need from people? And what does that allow me to believe? And more importantly, what does that allow me to not believe? What belief about myself does that allow me to disprove and no longer feel connected to anymore? That belief, that's the thing that needs to be validated. Whatever the compliments or whatever get you away from, that's what needs to get validated. So you validate that, you accept it, you eventually warm up to it, and then you can do the work of integrating it. If you have any more questions about this, let me know. I know it's a big ass topic and there's a lot to talk about, but I wanted to talk about this because, like I said, validation is one of the most common things people talk about, but damn near nobody has a working explanation of it that actually helps. So if you want to know more about this, ask me questions. I'll be happy to help with anything that I can. I'm Chris Roscoe. I love you, and I'll see you next time.